Well, Noel, it's lovely to see you. We've come to the Bat and Ball at Wisborough Green. Wonderful restaurant. Lucy Hode here is our photographer.
And the G&T.
And you've got a G&T. And I, being pure of spirit and body, am drinking a nice glass of water. Anyway, you've got lots of questions for me from your good Facebookers.
I have indeed. We thought we'd do a question and answer session. And we're doing this in one take Hamilton.
We hope.
We hope. So we're going to kick off. Well, we have to start obviously with Andy Walmsley, who is our expert, our resident guru. I don't know how Andy does it. He holds down a job, full-time job in France. He lives in France and he runs his own Facebook page and blog.
And he's a wonderful contributor.
He is a wonderful
Hamilton's
contributor.
Hot Shots.
Absolutely, yeah. And he's asked the first question, and actually Dave Hall, who has also been a great contributor to the group as well, he's asked a similar question, and their questions run along similar lines. But I'll start with Andy's first question, and that is, when you first started in radio, who was your biggest influence?
Well, when I was a boy, I used to listen to Pete Murray on Radio Luxembourg. And in time, of course, I met him. We worked together at Radio 2. And what's been lovely is that my broadcasting hero has become my friend. And I got a lovely program with him at Christmas time last year at Boom Radio at his home at Wimbledon. And I'm hoping to see him again very shortly. He, by the way, this year will be 98. So he's doing, in September he'll be 98.
Will he be booming at Christmas?
I don't know, he might be again. But, he retains his wonderful sense of humour. And I asked him in our chat at Christmas, we were talking about Housewife's Choice. And I said, you must have done that a few times, Pete. And he said, 4 times. What a memory, and that's all those years ago.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Quite incredible. And moving on to the sort of parallel questions, because Andy's asked this. He said, you've played tens of thousands of tracks in your career, but if you were asked to appear on Desert Island Discs, as an aside, he said, why haven't you been? But anyway, that's a question for another day. What would be your favourite discs? And now, Dave Hall also suggests that David should have done a Tracks of Your Years as well. Maybe with Ken Bruce. Why wasn't that done either? But never mind. So these are very similar questions, and really probably a subject for another session, another day, because there's so much there. But I would ask you maybe 1 or 2 pointers as to significant records.
Yeah, hopefully the real Desert Island Discs may call one of these times. Top 10 is difficult, but I could give you certainly a couple. I love Music by John Miles. That sort of epitomises everything about me, really. To live without my music would be impossible to do. Because in this world of trouble, my music sees me through. Wonderful lyric. I also love The Long and Winding Road by the Beatles, because in a way it reminds me of the long and winding road that leads to my door. So that's another one of my favourites. But I've got a whole lot, too many to mention today, but there'll certainly be 2.
Great, okay. Well, as I say, that's something that we can come back to another day. Now, we're going to talk about your superfan. The lady who was there in 1968 is still there now.
Yes.
Linda writing letters to the mail.
Linda Barnett, who lives on the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
God bless you, Linda.
Well, her questions are, David has worked on so many radio stations, and I was wondering, which is the station he has stayed on longest and the shortest, and which is your favourite?
Well, the station I was on the longest, I think, was Radio 2, because I had a daily show there for 9 years. And before that, they took my show from Radio 1, which they shared. So that's probably a total of about 12 or 13 years. Yeah. So that would be the longest. The shortest, for no sinister reason, was probably Liberty Radio in London, which was owned by Mohammed Al-Fayed, who also owned Fulham Football Club. And I was there for probably only about a year or so, but it was only because I moved on to something else. It was a good station, actually, but it had a poor signal. It was an AM signal in London, which is not the best.
And you had a brief time with Saga as well, didn't you, where you sort of connection with Nottingham? And
well, no, that was quite a bit longer, actually. That was a few years. That started with Primetime Radio, which was a national digital station,
Right.
and then I went up to Birmingham to launch the breakfast show up there, which I did for 15 months, and then I went to Nottingham. So I was launching stations at that time. I launched another one in Worthing called Splash FM, and I was actually a director of.
Yeah.
But sadly, none of them are there in the state that
No.
they were then. They've
And-
all been taken over, which happens a lot of
And
radio.
during your time in Nottingham, you got to meet David Lloyd and Paul Raby,
Yes, who now run Boom Radio,
Yeah.
which I work for. I do a daily show
connection man.
between 12 o'clock and 2 every day, broadcasting from home. It
Yeah.
launched during the lockdown, and when everybody was working from home, and luckily, so all I have to do is walk upstairs. It's great.
Absolutely. So now you need to nominate your favourite radio station that you've worked with.
Well, I think I'm not just saying this because I'm working for Boom, but I
Yeah.
think I've enjoyed that as much as any, apart from the fact that there's no travelling. Also, they're very nice people to work for, and also we have a very wide playlist, whereas some stations play the same 500 records over and
Yeah.
over again.
Yeah.
We have over
I
15,000
know. Here's
records.
to Boom.
Here's to Boom,
what
yes.
they've done
Here's to Boom.
for
Boom,
this,
boom.
for this radio generation.
Yeah,
Amazing, isn't
exactly.
it? Right. Moving on, I have a great friend. His name is Craig Braddock. He was
Yes, I
born in
know
this country.
Craig through his
Yeah, he
messages that he sends you.
He does. He says quite a lot on our various posts. He was born and brought up in Cambridge, and he now lives in the States. I think he's been there for about 20 years. But during his time, he's always been fascinated by horse racing, as indeed I am. But he went into it as his career, and he's now a race caller out there. But during his time here, he was mentored by Peter Bromley, who's somebody that you worked with. Anyway, his question to you is, David, you worked with one of my race calling mentors, Peter Bromley. He had a lot of sway at the BBC and almost single-handedly built their racing service. It must have been frustrating for you to have your show interrupted, but what do you remember of him as a person and as a broadcaster?
Well, when I started the show on Radio 2, they sent me to Sandown Park to watch him at work. And I sat next to him while he was doing his commentary. And I have to say I was enormously impressed. He was a wonderful commentator. And how on earth he picked up those horses, even with the binoculars. And he gave us the 1, 2, 3 as they went past the post. He was a master of his art. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a tug of war between horse racing and music with Radio 2 at that time, and on my show I was always being told to fade a record halfway through, which obviously I hate doing, and going over to Peter Bromley, and then sometimes he would spend about 5 minutes waffling about the horses, as they were at the starting stalls. And I know it's very difficult to time exactly when a race will begin, but it was a bit frustrating. So as I say, it turned out to be a tug of war between the two of us. Luckily, by the time Steve Wright came along to Radio 2, sport had moved off to, I think it was Radio 5 probably, allowing a man to play his records without interruption. But I guess Peter Bromley is probably now gone to the great...
Yeah, he has, and he was a great broadcaster.
He was.
He was a classic racing commentator, and
Yes.
particularly as he did it in sound. There were no pictures.
Yeah.
He had to create the picture.
He was a genius at what he did, but for me, he was just a bloody nuisance, really.
Absolutely. Craig asks, well, we'll leave poor old Peter Bromley alone now. Craig asks one more question, and he asks, because he's a great one for vintage television, Craig, and he knows there's nothing he doesn't know about vintage television, everything about your career from the day you started. But he says, of all the shows you introduced as a continuity announcer for ABC and Thames, which did you enjoy watching the most personally? Which show was it?
Well, when I was at ABC, they were the weekend company in the north of England. They had a wonderful schedule on Sunday night. They had Armchair Theatre, which was terrific drama, featuring top British actors. Sunday night at the London Palladium, which was live variety. They had The Avengers, Patrick Macnee and glamorous ladies that he co-starred with, and also Maverick, which was a great western, and it was a blockbuster schedule. There were only 2 channels in those days, and on Monday morning everybody went to work talking about the same programs they'd seen the night before.
Yeah.
When I moved to
It was all in
Thames,
black and white, sorry to interrupt, David, but I do
Yeah.
remember from my days at school, because I get date back to the black and white days.
Yeah.
It was all in black and white, and yet people used to argue with each other as to what colour things were.
yes.
Extraordinary.
Well, I was there at the beginning of colour television, where suddenly we had to, wear the right colour clothes instead of the things that you could get away with in black and white, and you had to make sure you hadn't had too much to drink the night before, otherwise you could have red eyes, which showed up on the camera.
Oh, right, yeah.
But with Thames, they were a great company, and they produced great light entertainment, and also great documentaries. And I remember The World at War, which was narrated by Laurence Olivier. That was an absolute classic, definitive version of World War II. Of course, I went to America with Thames when they started selling their programs to the American market. I had a week with them on air in New York, and then another one in Los Angeles, and that was great fun. When we went to Los Angeles, they did so well and they sold so many shows. They took us to Vegas for the weekend as a thank you, and we saw Hallelujah Hollywood, which was a very spectacular show, and we saw the great Dean Martin live in concert. It was great.
Amazing.
He came out with a drink in his hand like this, and he had a huge orchestra. It was something like a 40-piece orchestra. I've never seen such a big orchestra. And he looked at the audience and he said to the audience, "What are these people doing in my bedroom?" And as they'd been drinking. And Ernie Wise said to me, "He doesn't drink." I said, "You don't think so?" He said, no one can have that wonderful timing if they were a drinker. And of course, Ernie Wise knew all about great timing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Stuart Griffin, he was actually,
Hello, Stuart.
I don't know if you remember, but he got the very first Diddy Daddy on Boom Radio, on your very first Boom Radio
Yes,
show.
so you told me, he was the very first person.
Yeah,
He was like a virgin.
he was in at the beginning.
He was there at the start, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, he asks, having been the architect of the Hot Shots and of course your million sellers, what is your favourite album of all time and why?
Gosh, that is a very difficult question. I mean, I've had so many favourite albums. One album I do remember, I had it on an 8-track cartridge, and I used to play it in my car when I was going off to do gigs. So it got me in the mood for the evening ahead. It was the Isley Brothers, and I think it was called 1+3, wasn't it?
3+3, I think.
3+3, that was it, yeah. And it had such, That Lady, and just really, and I played it really, I was a hooligan.
Going through the jasmines of your car.
Yes, going through the jasmines of my mind and my car. And I played at full volume in the car to get in the mood for the night ahead. That was a great album, the Isley Brothers, yeah.
And moving on, Barry Denton. He's our Radio 210
Yes, Barry
expert.
Denton from Radio 210.
Yeah, and his question is, what would be your funniest moment on 210?
Well, I had a colleague and a very good friend called Keith Butler, and he had a number plate that he was very proud of, and the number was 210 Jock, J-O-K. In other words, like disc jockey, so 210 Jock. And on April Fool's Day, I doctored it, and I put another letter on the end of it, and I turned Jock into Joke. And I rang him up, he was in his car, and I said, "Keith, you're in the car, have you pulled over?" He said, "Yes, I have. This is live on the air." I said, "Tell me about that number plate of yours." He said, "Oh, well, David, as you know, it's 210 Jock." I said, "Are you sure, Keith?" He said, "Yeah, 210 Jock." I said, "Could you go outside and have a look and just double check?" So he got out of the car and he looked and he saw it was 210 Joke. He came back and he said, "You bugger."
Dear old Keith, I don't
So
think
it's
he's
wonderful.
no longer with us.
No,
is
he isn't. But it was a wonderful April Fool's joke. Naughty, I shouldn't have done it, but I did.
Oh, well. And finally, Alan Jarvie. AJ.
Wee Alan.
Yes, that's right, wee Alan. He's pitched in with a few googlies, actually. Well, they're very good questions.
You've saved these till the last.
I have. I've saved the best till last. Okay. So kicking off, is there anything in your career that you would change?
Gosh, I'll need time to think about that one. What's the second one?
Okay.
Apart from my socks.
Right. Right. Would you have liked to have developed the acting side of your career more?
No, I was never an actor, and I never had any aspirations to be an actor. The only acting I did really was in pantomime, and also in a couple of films where I actually played myself. So I was typecast really. I wasn't very good at characters, although I've enjoyed doing funny voices, but I don't think so, no.
No. Okay. Right. Would you have liked to present a talk show on LBC or GB News?
Yeah, I would quite like to do that now, actually. I did have a little go at talk radio, and I did a couple of shows for Radio London. And I quite hadn't listened to that. I was so busy listening to music radio, I hadn't really listened to the art of the presenter of talk radio. But I love Nick Ferrari now on LBC. I listen to him a lot in the morning, and I think he's a master of his art as well. And I would quite like to do that now, yes. But I don't think I will get the chance to, but I quite fancy it, yeah.
Yeah, well, you get plenty of chance to take part on GB News anyway.
On GB News
Yeah.
I do, yes.
Yeah.
And I do have a chance to have an opinion about things which are happening currently.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to be
Yeah.
very careful sometimes what you say, because you can say things now and it can be a career ender. You know.
Well, yeah, true,
So,
but
yeah.
I think you get away with it, David. I think
Not
you-
really,
you
not
know where
really.
you can go.
I can think of a couple of times recently where I had a couple of quite tricky topics that I had to deal with,
Yes.
and
yes.
so you have to just tread
Yeah.
carefully.
Yeah.
Sometimes say the second thing that comes into your mind and not the
That's probably-
first.
Yeah. Anyway, it's good that they keep asking you back.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm back again shortly,
Yeah.
doing the newspaper review on breakfast.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Great. Is Anne Diamond coming back? Or is she
And
back?
Diamond is back.
Oh, good.
Yes, she's
Good.
back.
Oh, that's nice to know. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Have you any thoughts of updating your books? The Music Game or Commercial Radio Days?
Do you know, that's a really good idea, isn't it? I should write another autobiography, I
I
think.
think there's a book in that, don't you?
Yeah, I think there's a book in that. All I need to do is think of a really good title. But I think I've got a few good stories to tell, yeah. People I've worked with, comedians, I've worked with pop stars. I mean, quite a lot of names I could drop in, aren't there? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's the diversity of your career.
Yeah.
And I think it's incredible that when you have a link every day with David Lloyd, he finds something
Yes.
different, some
He
different
does.
aspect of your career.
Yeah.
And I know myself with Hot Shots, I never ran out of material.
No.
Because you have had such a wide career with
Yes.
so many different things that you.
I have diversified quite a lot.
You've diversified quite a lot.
Yes.
But obviously,
They can't touch you for it.
no, you hope not. Anyway, okay. All right, and the next question is there anybody left you'd like to meet, or wish you had met?
No, I think I've met most of the people that I wanted to meet. One of the people I was most excited to meet was Roy Orbison, the Big O. And I think one of the reasons was that one of the first records I bought was Only the Lonely. And I played it on my father's radiogram. And I think because he'd been there all my life, star all my life. And he was sitting almost as near as you are now with the shades on. I thought, gosh, I'm sitting next to the Big O. So that was very exciting. I think Charlton Heston was also, that was great. And I met one of the big film stars. I interviewed him at his hotel in London. So offhand, no, just throwing that curved ball at me, I can't think of anybody that I would be desperate to meet. Quite nice to meet the Pope, I suppose. He'd be good. Yeah. But I think Prince Harry's earmarked that, hasn't he?
Has
He
he?
said it was one of the people
Yeah.
he's going to interview
Yeah.
is the Pope, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and this is the final question from Alan.
Yeah.
Right. If you had one wish, is there anything else that you would like to achieve in broadcasting?
No, I just want to keep going, I think. I'd like to,
Tomorrow.
Eh?
Tomorrow.
I'd like to, string it out as long as I can.
Yeah.
As long as I can, put two words together and I don't start talking nonsense and going all sort of gaga.
Yeah.
I don't mean Lady Gaga, but going all sort of gaga. I'd just like to carry on really doing what I am doing. Yeah. I'm very, very happy very happy bunny.
Absolutely.
And I'm very happy that you run Hamilton's Hot Shots for me. I'm very lucky that you do it. And I want to say thank you to everybody who contributes to it. And thanks for all your wonderful comments. And thank you to you for your wonderful appraisals that you do of my radio show every day. You will be pleased to know that I am going to take a little bit of time off, not too long. Might have a week off, so you can have a week off too.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Go racing again.
Absolutely, yes. You try and stop me. Thank you so much, David. It's been great, yet again.
Thank you,
I
Noel.
look forward to
and thank you to Lucy,
the group. And
on the other side of the camera.
And for the button ball for looking after us
She's
so
the other
well,
side
and
of the
Lucy.
camera. We have to say that Lucy, if somebody is tender years, who's there thinking, what the hell are they talking about?
Thank you, Lucy.